What if I told you that the ultimate spiritual teaching wasn't a set of rules, but a single, mind-bending paradox? What if the real path to enlightenment was realizing there's no path at all? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today as we unpack an ancient Taoist scripture that pretty much challenges everything we think we know about finding the way. So, the story kicks off on this really grand stage. You have to picture it. A divine master, this celestial worthy, is about to drop some serious wisdom. And there's this huge, immeasurable crowd gathered from all over. The air is just electric with anticipation. Everybody's there waiting for the secret to be revealed. And that's when this one disciple, a guy called the Good Brightness Youth, steps forward. He's brave enough to ask the question that's on literally everyone's mind. The question at the very core of any spiritual quest. He's basically saying, look, just tell us what to do. What's the formula? Give us the method to find the ultimate truth. But here's the thing. The master doesn't give them a 5-step plan. He doesn't hand out a new meditation technique. Instead, he delivers a paradox, one that's designed to completely shatter their whole way of thinking. This isn't an answer for your logical brain. It's an answer meant to break it. And there it is, the core of the entire teaching. The master looks out at this vast sea of seekers and tells them straight up that in reality, no one ever actually attains the path. I mean, what a shocking thing to say, right? If no one can attain it, then what is everybody even doing there? What's the whole point? So let's break this down. The first thing the master does is just completely dismantle the idea of separate beings. See, the moment you think of yourself as a separate being who needs to save other separate beings, you've already created a division. You've made an us and a them, a me versus the unenlightened. The scripture says this idea, that's the illusion that stops you from seeing that everything is already one. And that flows perfectly into the second part of the paradox. Because if there are no separate beings, then there can't be a separate path for them to walk on, can there? The very act of seeking a path, of treating it like some prize at the end of a race, is what keeps you from it. You can't attain what you already are. The search itself is what creates the distance. Okay, so if the whole game is about letting go of seeking, what does that actually look like in practice? Well, now that the master has totally flipped their world upside down, he starts pointing out all the common traps, all the spiritual dead ends that people fall into when they're clinging to the wrong ideas. And what's so wild is just how comprehensive these warnings are. It's not just about one or two things. It's about not getting attached to anything. Don't try to find the Dao by latching onto the idea of emptiness. Don't look for it in rituals or sounds. And here's the real kicker. Don't even try to find it by accumulating wisdom. Why? Because any concept you cling to, even a really spiritual sounding one, just becomes another thing you own, another separation, another trap. Now, this is all pretty abstract, right? I mean, how in the world are you supposed to practice a non-way? To make this whole idea easier to grasp, the scripture gives us this beautiful and really powerful metaphor that clears it all up, the metaphor of the empty boat. So think of all these teachings and even your spiritual practice as a boat. First, it just drifts. It has no intention of its own, it's empty. Second, it doesn't fight the river, it follows the natural currents. And third, and this is the most important part, once you reach the other shore, once you've crossed that river of ignorance, you leave the boat behind. You don't strap it to your back and carry it around. The teachings are a tool, a vehicle, not the destination. So if we're supposed to just abandon the very tools we're using, where does that leave our goals? Things like merit or enlightenment. Well, the scripture keeps going with this paradoxical logic, and it completely redefines these concepts that we usually take for granted. You know how we think of merit, like you do good things and you get spiritual points in some cosmic bank account? Well, the scripture throws that whole idea out the window. It says, what is called merit is not merit, it is just the name for it. True merit isn't something you can collect. It's the act you do with zero thought of reward. The second you think, hey, I'm doing a good deed to get merit, boom, you've already lost it. In this is the master's own story, and it's basically the punchline for this entire teaching. He says he was able to achieve enlightenment precisely because he realized there was no enlightenment to achieve. It wasn't about getting something, it was about letting go of everything. It was a realization that all goals, even the highest spiritual ones, are ultimately empty. And to really hammer this point home, the scripture gives this incredibly stark warning. It says you could perform the most extreme acts of devotion. You could sacrifice your body over and over again. But if you do it with the wrong mindset, with an ego that's looking for a payoff, it's all for nothing. It's like grinding yourself to dust. Your karmic ties will never break because the self that's doing all the sacrificing is the very problem you're trying to solve. All right, so we're getting to the end of the text now, and it does not mess around. After laying out this really difficult, paradoxical teaching, it basically presents a choice with unbelievably high stakes. For anyone who hears these words, there are two and only two possible outcomes. And the two outcomes could not be more different. It's a fork in the road. On one hand, for those who can hear this, believe it, and really get it, the reward is total liberation from suffering and merit beyond what you can even imagine. But on the other hand, for those who hear it and react with disbelief or doubt, well, the text describes a pretty terrifying fate, rebirth in the underworld, facing judgment and endless torment. Yeah, the imagery here is meant to be pretty chilling, right? It's designed to make you feel the weight of this choice. In the worldview of this text, getting this principle wrong isn't just a philosophical mistake. It's the very engine that powers the whole cycle of suffering and pain. And that leads us to the final, most brilliant twist of all. At one point, the master says that to truly practice this scripture is to see that it has no text and no characters. The true teaching is wordless. So the question it leaves us with is, what did we just do here? What did you just learn? Are all these words just another finger pointing at the moon, another boat to be left behind once we've seen where it's pointing? The scripture doesn't tell us. It leaves us right there, where the real work begins.